Hello and welcome to the Catch a Lift Coaches Corner. I'm Cal Coach Melissa, and this week I'm honored to welcome retired U.S. Marine Corps veteran Branden Kunath to today's show. Branden is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, National Programs Director for the Mighty Oaks Foundation, and a Cal veteran athlete. Welcome to part 2 of Branden's story. Last week, if you weren't here with us, we left off with Branden telling us about his career in the Marines, including 7 deployments, and ultimately what would lead him to going to the Mighty Oaks Foundation and building a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. Branden, welcome back.
Thank you. Like I said before, glad to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you back here and go through the rest of your story today. Let's kind of jump in where we left off.
Okay.
Last week, when we kind of finished up, Branden, you quoted for us from the book of Joshua, and you brought it into your own family. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Branden, talk to us about being an active duty Marine after you had gone through Mighty Oaks program and you developed this intimate relationship with Christ. What did this look like for you going back and being that active duty Marine?
Oh, wow. Great question. Yeah, and to kind of back up a little bit, as I talked about it a little bit earlier in the previous episode, I really thought that a Christian and a Marine couldn't coexist, right? And so now here I am seeing, wow, this can happen, right? And the way I look at it is like, what better leader that I could be as a Christian man and a Marine, to have that foundation of values and morals and everything that I thought were wrong before, in a sense, right? I thought that it was almost a weakness, or a Christian person in the Marine Corps or the military was a guy you couldn't trust, right? So with finding the hope, healing, and restoration that I had found, knowing how many guys I could go down the list of guys of like, man, this guy needs to be here, this guy needs to be here. I have platoons of guys,
right?
That I have this cure, right? There's this crazy disease out there, this crazy plague, and I'm like, man, I have the cure. And just as Chad Robichaud, our founder, talks about it, he's like, he says it the same way. It's almost like I had this cure to this strange kind of cancer or disease, and I needed to share it. And so immediately I just started thinking about, man, how many other guys can I try to get here? And it would just kind of help ignite the fire that was in me. And as a Christian, we're called to be, disciples, and to go out and bring other people along and share the gospel. And
right.
I was ready to do it. And for me to be able to go back to Wounded Warrior Battalion at Camp Pendleton, it was like a perfect starting ground of all these other people that were there, that were in the same spot of kind of just there. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what the next day was going to look like. And you just kind of become stagnant there.
Right.
And so I just started going back and just sharing, like, hey, look, I just got back from this program. I know all the programs out there, but you definitely need to check this one out. Yeah. And then, for a guy like me, coming from an infantry background, many guys that knew me, not in a million years would they think that I would be the type to go to a program like that, to go to a program in general, but then to be able to go up there and bring it back and say, hey, this is what I just came back from. And there was something that I didn't notice. And you don't get the nickname Roid Rage or Juggernaut because you're a nice, friendly guy.
Right.
Not to say that I was a bully or a jerk in the sense, or took steroids or anything like that, but I'm not, a small framed guy.
Right. Yeah.
I come from a very aggressive infantry background. And for me to come back and for people to see this different persona of me, like this, like, man, like this, there's something about this guy that's much different.
Right.
The commanders at the unit seen it. My friends and family seen it. And it was something I couldn't explain, but they seen it. And people will talk about it, that, the light that shines through us is God's grace and mercy. And people were like, I don't know what that guy's got. I don't know what he did, but I kind of want that, right? And I just had to tell everybody, it's like, hey, here, this is what I just came back from.
Yeah.
This is the program. When I went through the program, it was initially called Fight Club. With Chad's background and the original curriculum that we used, it was called Fight Club, and then it kind of carried over from the movie. For those that have seen it, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club, right? And so there was kind of this weird mix of people that wouldn't necessarily talk about it. They were just like, oh, it's a program, just go to it. But that's not what was supposed to be done. It was you don't share what's been shared there.
Right.
So what's said, you can unburden yourself. I know for me, it was the first time that I dumped out my pack. I was carrying around this pack for 30 something years.
Right.
And it was just full. And I mean, it was just coming out. You think of like Santa Claus's, sack of toys and stuff. And just, I mean, it was, but not good things were being dumped out.
Right.
So for me to be able to go up there and do that and understand that stuff could stay there was a huge piece for me to be able to go back and share with everyone else, is that you don't have to worry about the feeling of being judged, or whatever you say can end up in your record or potentially make you lose a security clearance or something like that, which is a common issue. And it's a valid issue as well that people are worried about. So the ability for you to be up there in a safe environment, to be authentic, transparent, is huge, and unlike anywhere else, And as we still say to this day, if you can't be honest in an environment like this, where can you be?
Right.
And even as guys come through, we say it very clear, like, look, we're going to run the program as is. The curriculum's going to be taught as is and stuff. And it's either going to be you take the mask off or you keep it on, but who's going to get the help? Is the mask going to get the help, or are you going to get the help? Are we going to be talking to you and everything like that? So for me to be able to go back to share that with others was just huge. It was just a huge thing with me, and it just kind of reignited this new found purpose in me, and to be able to go back and kind of pay it forward, if you will, and share it with as many people as possible.
That's incredible. So, Branden, following your service, you would join on to the team of Mighty Oaks. Tell us why this was such a seamless transition and decision for you to take as a civilian.
Yeah, so that whole transition piece, I think, is probably one of the biggest hangups or issues that veterans have.
Absolutely.
Is the what's next, right? And
Right.
you go from 4 to 20, 30 years of knowing what you do every day, day in and day out, everything's structured, not worrying about first and the 15th payments and all that, to, oh my gosh, I got to kind of be a grown up now. And I struggled with that. Don't get me wrong. I definitely struggled with that. My medical board results came back much sooner than I anticipated. So even though I knew there was a strong possibility my time was done, I still had a glimmer of hope. I was like, man, maybe I can push this a little bit. And again, I was trying to stay in to where at least I could be in and finish my time. But I would be on a very, very limited duty. It would be kind of like a permanent limited duty status.
Okay.
Unfortunately, through all the testing and everything that I went through, I found out that I had celiac disease, and it was a big reason why I had several issues going on with me, and it kind of filled in a lot of blanks for me.
Okay.
And I got introduced to this thing, gluten, right? I'm like, what is that? What did I catch?
Yeah.
And then it started breaking down and becoming, okay, this makes sense to me. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin for me, because you have a major dietary issue, concern like that in the military. It's a no-go. You're pretty much done. So that was, again, the final nail for me of any hopes in trying to stay in and all that. So that kind of, like I said, fast forwarded everything for me. But during that time, while I was waiting, I was serving as a team leader with Mighty Oaks, and I was the military liaison for the foundation. So I was able to still be in the Marine Corps, do my day-to-day active duty stuff, go to my appointments, show up to formations, all that stuff.
Right.
But I also was able to participate in the programs and facilitate other guys getting there, go into different units to be able to talk with them, and just being kind of an ambassador, and being that point of contact for the Wounded Warrior Battalion unit in Mighty Oaks. So it was almost like the first internship that we had. And at Wounded Warrior Battalion, there's a ton of internship possibilities. Guys they can go to I think like FBI or ATF and like these government agencies, and they can kind of just intern and shadow. And there's some business ones. They'll go up to USC Business School and do all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't unheard of, but it kind of just was. It formed organically with us.
Right.
And as I continued on, it just started clicking and making sense. That, man, okay. I don't necessarily feel like I'm ready to finish my degree yet in school. And I really don't want to start throwing my resume out there and get pulled into a job or a new career that would potentially take me away from being involved. So I was left with kind of a conundrum, if you will, and trying to figure out, okay, what's best? Can I say no to some good things so I can say yes to some best things?
Right. Yeah.
And trying to figure out pay, how am I going to pay bills? Because that, even though I had a good idea of what my medical retirement would be, my CRSC, my combat pay would be, I forget what the acronym actually means. But I had an idea of what that would be. There's still a gap, which a lot of people don't understand, is there's a gap between your last paycheck and your actual last paycheck and when you receive it, and then when benefits kick in. So like many young Marines and even further on in my career, I didn't save much, and I didn't plan for that whatsoever. So there was a moment where I kind of panicked and was like, oh man. And so trying to figure out how to move off of base, because we were living in base housing, and find a place that will, allow us to rent, knowing that my income is about to change drastically. But I don't believe in luck in the sense. I definitely don't believe in coincidences. But it as I prayed through it, which is something I really have never done in that kind of scenario before, much before that, if I was to say that I prayed, it was what I would consider a karma prayer, that I screwed up. And I'm like, God, if you get me out of this, this is what I'll do.
Right.
And, I'm negotiating with your creator of the world, and it's like how arrogant of me to do that. But we do that all too often.
Absolutely.
It's
yes,
too
we
common.
do.
But this was one of the first times where I was like, okay, God, what do you have in store for me? What do you need from me? And I really just tried to be content with everything in the situation. And as it happened, every bill was paid as it needed to be. We were able to move into a small, reasonable apartment and get stable and established until my time came to where Chad came to me and said, all right, hey, you're out. Let's bring you on. And I started in a kind of a probationary purpose, because Mighty Oaks was still pretty new at the time. And they were working on their funding. And for people that aren't familiar with the nonprofit world, especially nonprofit and almost ministry nonprofit, most of the staff or leadership, they raise their own salaries and their own funds, or it's a very, very low amount,
Right.
Because it's kind of in the name, nonprofit, right? So we're not producing stuff to sell, so it's like, okay, well, how do we make sure everybody is taken care of for the work that they do and all that? So I just had to be content with it and understand that, okay, this is a process. I'm starting over again. Just like if I was to go anywhere else, I couldn't go into it with an entitlement of, I had done this for so long, I had
Right.
achieved this for so long that I automatically should jump into this. And all too often that happens when somebody transitions through it. So, as I look at it now, I was really spoiled in my transition process. Not to say that it was super easy or anything like that, but I really just had to submit to the situation at hand and let God drive it, and trust that when things got really tight and we had to pinch a lot of pennies and all of that, that was a part of it.
Right.
And coming from a background of where I was terrible at spending money, again, I liked fast bikes, trucks, cars, you name it. Nothing was good enough. Nothing was fast enough. So I was always kind of looking for the next best thing. And the next best thing is not my bills to pay or making sure groceries were taken care of. That was an afterthought,
Right.
all too many times. But this was a good moment for me to take a step back and really take a look at our finances, and put me in humble me, honestly, humble me to a point of where I'm like, I need to start taking this a little more serious and being more supportive with my wife in the finances, rather than kind of being the jerk of like, it's my money, I get to spend it how I want, and just make sure the bills are paid and all that, because that's how kind of I was at that time. But transition for me was interesting to say the least. I never thought in a million years I'd be working in a nonprofit in a sense, especially in a faith-based nonprofit, doing what I do, and it's been an absolute blessing. I look back as far as I can go, and everything makes sense now as it goes through. I can ask the what if questions and why and stuff, but there's a reason why I landed where I landed when I did, and I'm truly, truly thankful to God for it.
That's just amazing. Thank you so much, Branden, for sharing that with us. Would you tell us a little bit about what you do now at Mighty Oaks and also about the programs that Mighty Oaks offers?
Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to. So, um, I, as the national programs director, I get to oversee all of our programs that we actually run. Our primary program is the Legacy program, which formerly was called the Fight Club program, um, and we have 33 to 35 programs throughout the year, and I get to oversee all those. They're a mix of male programs and women programs, so they're split for very specific reasons. And we have them at 4 different locations throughout the United States. And yeah, so I get to make sure all those are handled and going the way they're supposed to. That the my leadership and my team have everything they need, and are able to function the way they're supposed to. Which again, it goes back to everything that's kind of happened up to this point, and how God uses people with gifts in certain ways and in certain places at certain times, and that we don't get to do everything that we want to do. I kind of landed right in where, even though I didn't really like it, but I was good at it, and it was kind of operations, logistics, and stuff like that. Just coming from um, a platoon sergeant to operations chief background,
Right.
it kind of, I picked up the ball and ran with it really easy,
Right. Yep.
coordinating and making sure that the mission was being done the way it was supposed to. So yeah, I get to make sure the programs get to go the way they're supposed to, and then on the other part of it, support the resiliency programs that we do, and that's where either Chad or Jeremy Stolnecker, they'll be able to go out, and some of the other members of the team will go out to active duty bases, yellow ribbon events,
Okay.
and kind of do the talks of how to get in front of this stuff.
Yeah.
and the proactivity aspect of it, and kind of walking through the mind, body, spirit, and now they've added social to it, but the kind of the four pillars of things, and walking through what each one means, dispelling the myths and all that, and just helping the active duty, reserve, service members be able to know it's okay. It's okay not to be okay sometimes, and where to go and how to deal with that, I get to go and speak at churches or events, and just things like this.
Right.
So it's a big smorgasbord of things, right? And we're all involved in one way, shape, or form. My wife is part of the women's program, so she helps facilitate the women's program. And then she also runs our inventory in our store. So anybody orders stuff, whether it's books, resources, or a hat, T-shirt, she makes sure everything gets sent out on time the way it's supposed
That's
to.
wonderful.
So I wouldn't recommend working with your wife, so to speak, but it is what it is. Those challenges and everything have allowed me to grow in different ways,
Right.
and learn some different type of patience. So but it's fun. As I said, not in a million years would have I thought I'd be here doing this, but I love it. It's not easy.
Right.
You probably know, but I'll tell kind of an insider secret. Veterans, working with veterans, we are some of, and notice I said that we are some of the whiniest, needy people in the world, right? And it's difficult to work with us. I'll just say that. But I also understand the importance behind it. I understand the need, and what's at stake.
Right.
So it helps carry me over, and get past some of those frustrating points. And it keeps me waking up every morning of like, okay, what's next? What's next? What do I have to do today? How can I be better than I was yesterday? Where it's easy to be like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. There's those days where I'm like, man, is this what I want to continue to do? I still have more of this, and never fails. When I have those thoughts, something will pop up. A crazy story, not to go on a tangent, but just yesterday, I was in the office. A guy walked into our office, and he was lost. He was actually looking for a different place to pick something up. And however he hit the address in, the pin dropped on our office. And it was way off of where he should have been after we kind of figured it out. And as I was kind of helping him out, trying to get him point in the right direction, he stopped, and on our doors, our main doors as you walk in, it's a big logos all over the door, and it's our motto and all that stuff, and the kind of patrol silhouette. And he stopped, and he's like, "So what do you guys do here?" And I jumped right in and told him, "This is what we do." And he's like, "Oh my gosh!" He's like, "Can I get your card?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And brought him inside, and found out he was a veteran. And he actually is a personal trainer at another facility in this area, and where I'm at in Riverside County. He's an Army veteran, and super excited. He was like, "Man,
That's awesome.
There's a reason why I got lost, and I ended up here."
100%.
And it's those little things that I choose to hold on to. Finding out I have a Marine that's at the session right now, who I was just texting before I got in here, and he was just telling me of like, "Man, you were so right. I don't know why I didn't listen to you earlier." That I'm getting baptized on Friday. I've never been baptized.
Oh, that's incredible. How wonderful.
And this is a guy who, if you would have had a conversation with him before, to sum it up, there was no God. There was no way there could be a God. We're dust in the wind kind of thing. And that's the conversation that I'm having with him now. And those are those things. But so that's what I get to do in the sense. Chad, he's the guy on the front line that started this thing. He says he was the very first student, way back when. He kind of puts it as being on the 50-yard line at every Super Bowl. Every day is a Super Bowl for us as we get to help guys and gals come through. We're talking somebody that just got out to somebody that's been out for many years, a spouse that's been struggling for forever, parents that are struggling, to find how do I tell my son, my daughter, how to go get help, and they reach out to us, and we'll help navigate everything.
Right.
Guys get tricked all the time to go to the program, and it's amazing to see how everything works, not because of us in the sense, but how God uses us, and he he moves us, and we're just the vessels and tools that he uses. And I know it's real hard for people that aren't of faith, or lack the belief of like, man, there's just no way, it makes no sense. And really, I mean, the Bible actually talks about how it doesn't make sense to them,
right,
because of what they don't know. But to be able to see it on this side, it's just absolutely amazing.
Absolutely wonderful to hear about Branden. Branden, for any veterans or anyone listening, how can they get involved with the Mighty Oaks programs?
Yeah. So let me go back because you did ask, what's the program, right, and all that. And so the program is a 5-day, 5-day program called the Legacy Program, and that's where we will take someone from wherever they're at in the United States, and we'll bring them to one of our ranches, and they're there for a week-long course. During that course, you're involved in a pretty strict curriculum, and through that, you're around other like-minded people that have served, come from different backgrounds. You're with other people who have walked that walk. So everybody on my leadership team started as a student, including myself. December 2013, I went through as a student, and so all my team leaders, my leadership staff, my mentors, have all started as a student, and it's kind of the ground roots kind of aspect.
Right.
I kind of explain it of like, you don't want to go to airborne jump school, right? And then find out that your jump master has never jumped out of a plane ever, right? And it's kind of one of those things of like, we start from the ground roots, so there's no way that somebody can say, well, you don't understand how I feel. You don't, even though it happens, we're able to kind of navigate that. So during the course, to lay it out simply, is that we use scripture and we use the Christian faith, right? And it's the non-clinical approach to how to deal and overcome challenges that come from post-traumatic stress, combat trauma, trauma in life, in that transition process, how to navigate all those issues, and we do it from a Christian faith background, that we're created to live, operate, and we were created a certain way. So if we were created a certain way, we have to find out who the creator is, and essentially the guidebook of how we're supposed to live our life. So if we understand that God is our creator, he gave us his word so that we can abide by what we need to do day in and day out. And so we use that to compare and contrast our lives as we're seeing it. And as I tell guys, like when you come through and we're teaching a class, it could be on character. That's one of the topics. And as we're going through, and there's some times where it could be kind of rough. The content's kind of a poke in the chest. Well, I explain it as this: when you have those feelings, when you have that argument that you want to have, it's not with me, it's with God, because I'm just explaining it. I'm just telling you, okay, well, Scripture tells us this, and something simple is what's determined as right. Well, what's determined as good? Well, God's good. God determines what is right, not what we want to deem it as right, because that's very subjective. We can go on and on. Different opinions have different things that are right, wrong, and the other. And so we lay that out, and we just, again, we ask the other, people to go through and compare and contrast their life to it, and make the changes that they need. And ultimately, it starts with that authentic relationship that you have with that you need to have with Christ. Because here's the big secret, right? Is that I can help you get your mind right. I can help you get your body right, back in shape. I can help you find a good nutrition person
Right.
and a financial person and this, that, and the other. But if your soul is still at stake for eternity, I've completely failed you. I've completely put you down the wrong path. Now, I get it. I totally understand. Not everybody's going to go with that. We don't force anybody with anything. We're not in there holding snakes and beating people over the head with
Right.
Bibles or anything like that. We're not even preaching or anything like that. We just simply share the gospel. We share, hey, look, this is what. If you want to know what's changed for me, if you want to know how I've got to this point, I'm not better than you. I don't have all these things figured out. I'm just a little farther down the road. And just like on a ruck march or on a run, when that guy starts falling back, what do? We'll send somebody back. We'll grab them. We'll turn back, grab them. We'll circle up and run back and grab them. And essentially, that's what we're doing with that, to make sure that your eternity is safe with God, rather than being in eternal damnation, right? And being just, kind of stuck in this never-ending path of destruction and hate and bitterness and everything, and thinking that that's it. And even if you think that, okay, well, on earth, that's all I've got, this is how I'm going to be, and you accept that, and then you say, as long as I get through this, I'll be good, because when I'm done, I'm done. Like, I'm going to die, and it's it. I'm going to go into the ground, and there's going to be nothing else. And for people to really think that, it breaks my heart, honestly, to think that you think this is it. You think this is the only part. And knowing what the truth is on the other side and the possibility, I have the ultimate duty. I have the ultimate, I'm bound to share that with other people, what that hope is. And so to be able to walk guys through that, and have them ask some serious questions of your legacy, like I talked about in the previous part, is trying to change that legacy, and putting things into right perspective and right order, and going back and breaking through some of these barriers of guys that are like, well, you don't understand how bad I am. You don't understand all the things I've done, or I've done things so bad, there's no way I can make up for this, or I can be forgiven for this. Well, let me tell you, you're right. There's no way that you can make up for it.
Right. Yeah.
But I can also tell you that God is faithful, and when we ask for His forgiveness, that He's faithful in giving it to us. And for those that are in Christ, there is no condemnation. So it means that there's nothing that you can do that will separate you from God. And to be able to share that with people and have them understand, like, yeah, you can't work yourself into heaven. You can't work yourself into righteousness. You can try all you want, and not to go down and talk bad, but there's a lot of other belief systems that's their background. It's almost like a ladder approach, like climbing the rungs of the ladder to achieve a better position and to work your way into something. And unfortunately, that's just not how it works. That's one of the biggest distinctions that separates Christianity from other faith beliefs. And again, everybody has the right to believe what they want to believe. And if I truly believe in what Christianity is and what God's word is, and if I understand that either we choose to have a relationship with Christ or we don't, and we will be eternally separated, if I truly believe that, I don't want anybody to go to hell.
Right.
Anybody. Just knowing that. So if I have the opportunity to share the gospel, if my guys have the opportunity to share the gospel because of what it's done for them, then we're going to do it. And that's the bottom line. And, once somebody's at the program and they're going through it, we have the classes and everything. And it's not just like your all day classes, just getting beat over the head with whatever it is. We break up the day where guys will go kayaking, they'll go horseback riding, zip lining, they can do all kinds of things. So we push recreation stuff in there as well, just to break up the time. And it just gets those guys back into the camaraderie aspect. Even the ladies, when the women's program goes on, they probably have the hardest job out of them all. And I'll explain it. The men's program is primarily made of guys that come from a veteran, active duty, first responder backgrounds.
Okay.
The women's program, though, and you're probably going to think this is crazy when I say this, but the women's program is comprised of spouses, female veterans, female active service members, female first responders, and they're all in one group. And they're able to go through, because so people ask us all, like, how do you do that? Like, don't they have it's almost like a college football team, like rivalry or something, right? And we're able to go through that because it's just like the men's program. It starts with who we were created to be as individuals, as God created us as man and woman. Well, that's our starting point. What you did throughout your life that has value, that has meaning, and there was, it's a part of your story, but that's not who you are. So everybody starts on the same playing field, the level playing field of, I was a Marine, but first and foremost, I'm a Christian man. So let's look at things through that lens rather than me being a Marine or anything like that. It helps me to relate, but at the same time, that's not where, we're measuring anything or saying that you couldn't relate to this, that, and the other. So we're able to walk through that with them. The women do the same thing and run through the program. It's very similar to the men's program. The women's program actually started as a challenge that Chad got from a female Marine at Wounded Warrior Battalion. She approached him and said, hey, you have this men's program. What about us?
Yeah.
And if Chad or anybody knows Chad, he doesn't like challenges in the sense, it's an issue now, it's a problem, and he'll tackle it. Yeah. And so he got everybody together, and we jumped through some hoops, and the ladies team, Kathy Robichaud, Chad's wife, Suzanne Stahlnecker, who's my women's program director, put their heads together, and they developed the women's program curriculum. And so they're able to run programs very similar to the men's program.
That's wonderful.
Throughout the year. At the best cost in the world, no cost. So everybody that attends doesn't have to pay anything. And then you might ask, well, what if a guy's in Florida and my program's in California? Well, most people can't fork over that money, especially with the airlines right now, the prices right now. Well, because of the position that we're in, because of the faithful donors and sponsors and people that just support us, and they know what's on the line, we're able to fly people, and that's our biggest cost is air travel for a reason. But again, we don't want to have any excuse why somebody can't get to the program, and we never will turn anyone down either. So if somebody submits an application, they're going to go. There might be some time of when they could go, but they're going to go. And that's where I'm involved day in and day out, making sure that anybody that does submit an application, my application coordinators are working on it as hard and fast as they can to get them scheduled, and trying to break down the excuses or barriers that would prevent them.
Right, for sure.
Work with the spouses and all that. So
that is wonderful. And who exactly, Branden, or can you tell us program criteria for anyone that does want to go? What would be the criteria to apply and go?
Yeah. So you like eligibility?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's real simple. Did you serve? Okay, great. Come on. It's really simple as that.
That's easy. Yeah.
And again, that's exactly it. To try to get away from like, well, I wasn't in combat, or I wasn't in
Right.
this, or I
Yep.
only did this time. We keep it very simple because again, anybody that comes to the program will get something out of it. I've had guys that uh, have been pastors for however long in their life, served in one capacity in their life, and they still came and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about that before. And again, it's like you can only get better with knowledge, right? And just being a lifelong learner, rather than just sticking with the can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. Um, but we've had so many people come through from different levels in their life, different backgrounds, and I put I'd be very very uh, willing to say that everyone that's come through, close to the 4,000 people that have come through, walked away better. Like there's no way that they didn't come to the program and walk away better. Now, not everybody walks away a Christian, which is obviously that's my ultimate hope for
Right.
them.
Yep.
But they at least walk away with the tools and some resources and a new network of people that they
Right.
know they can go back to, um, and lean on. So, because that's one of the other things is that once somebody goes through the program, it's not like you just finished and high five, good luck.
Yep.
My mentors are there. They're a part of the aftercare team that stick around, and they work with the guys as soon as they get home. The women's program has the same structure because we're very clear on it. Of like, just because you came through the program didn't wipe the slate clean,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And just because you made this new decision to live your life as a Christian doesn't mean that everything's all perfect and it's going to be sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns and stuff, and that everything's going to fall in place. Those same issues that you left before you went to the program are still going to be there. That whatever it is, your addictions, your argument that you had with your spouse before you left, the separation between
Right.
you and your children, not having a job, all of those things are still going to be there. The difference is how you respond to them when you return home, and when you do respond to them, and then you get tripped up, or you fall back into the depression, or just feel hopeless again. What do? You have that ability to turn back and say, oh, let me call those guys that I just went through the program with. Let me call that mentor that said, hey, look, this is why I'm here, is to help support you, to connect, to connect somebody that doesn't have a church, that has never been to a church. And that's that mentor's job, is to seek out a church in that person's area and make sure that they can connect there, connect them to a biblical counselor if need be, and just support them and surround them with support. We have Outposts, which is the continued on group meeting that's ran by people that went through, and there are 27 locations throughout the states that alumni in that area can go and connect on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and just continue to fight on, and then also to continue to pay it forward, because again, they're going to run into someone, they're going to know someone, and they're going to want to hand off a pamphlet. They're going to want to, hey, let me put you in contact with this guy. And so we go all the way back to what your question was, is trying to make that process as easy in the start as possible. It doesn't matter what your discharge was. It could be a bad conduct. It could have been a full honorable. You could have did only a year and a half. You could have did 22 years if you served. We want you to come, and it's as simple as that. And then with the first responders, it's kind of the same thing. If they served as a police, fire, medical background, we bring them along as well.
That's tremendous. Thank you so much, Branden, for sharing with us the tremendous work that Mighty Oaks Foundation is doing. We will get a link down in the show notes for Mighty Oaks for anybody that is interested. I do want to kind of shift gears here now, Branden,
Absolutely.
and I want to talk to you about Catch a Lift and your fitness. How did you first learn about Catch a Lift, or what brought you to Catch a Lift?
Yeah. So crazy story. through my connection of meeting a guy through Mighty Oaks and the church I go to, Carnell Martin. So shout out to Carnell, which the guy's a beast. Like
Yes, he is.
super impressive. But we become very good friends. And it was just a random conversation one day. I think I was talking about putting in a garage gym, and he was like, "Oh man, let me tell you about this organization that I partner up with." And then he had started sharing it, and I'm like, "Man, I had just seen something that went across my social media maybe like a day or two before that." And I'm like, "Man, I just saw something like that." And he was like, "No, all right, you gotta complete this, you gotta do this." Gave me the kind of the initial part of fill out the application and all
Right.
the what to do stuff. And yeah, he got me connected. And as soon as I got home, I was like, okay, let me see what's going on here. Went on the website and started checking, looking in everything, and put in my application. And that, really, it's all she wrote.
That's awesome. So, Branden, talk to us a little bit about your individual fitness and, what are you into fitness wise? What does a training week look like for you?
Yeah. So I mean, fitness has always been a cornerstone for me. All the way back to as a young kid, with my waiter set that I had, waiter
Oh,
weight
yeah.
set,
Yep.
and trying to learn how to do everything as I was going. I always hated cardio. I hated running. I joke about how I'm allergic to cardio running because I break out. I start breathing real bad, and
I think I
I
have that
sweat.
same, yeah, I have that same,
Yeah,
same
so like,
reaction. Yep.
I think it's very common. It's one of those things, right?
It really is.
Um, so even though I did run, I played sports in high school, and I was on a track team for a very very short time. And of all things I got put into hurdles, like 400 meter hurdles, and I was like, man, okay. Um, but I grew up around weights. My dad tried to show me what he could, and all that. And then just going into the military, it's kind of a common thing.
Right.
Um, you know, Military bases has some of the best gyms in the world. And I don't really know too many people that don't want to exercise that are in the military or come from that culture. Um, my problem was earlier on was I would definitely do what I guess people now would call the bro split,
Yeah.
or I would ego lift and everything. And I thought I knew just enough to where I thought I knew a lot, And I went through the plethora of supplements and the gimmicks
Oh,
and
yeah.
every muscle magazine that you could know to man. And
Yep.
I went through all of it, and I had success in some things, and I had a lot of failures in other things. But just going through it, I just had to do something. I got into different types of martial arts and everything. I talked about it briefly in the earlier one, but I started boxing and doing martial arts when I was a young kid. I got into Muay Thai kickboxing, and then into jujitsu. Kind of led into MMA, and I did that for a while. So it kind of all was coming together.
Right.
But injuries come, and they'll definitely hinder a lot. So unfortunately, injuries that I had, and not taking care of myself properly, not exercising and lifting properly, just kind of exacerbated things. And it put me into a funk where there was many things I couldn't do, or I would get going and I would hurt myself, and then it would kind of put me off, and then oh man, I got to start all over again, and
Right.
the cycle. And so through that, at Wounded Warrior Battalion West, they have multi-million-dollar facility there of like the best equipment. They have trainers and Olympic athletes that work there, and that can really just help shape things out. And I started swimming there. They have a really nice pool there, and I was always really good at swimming. For some reason, most people think I'm just going to sink, um, but I could swim real good. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, um, my vestibular issues were just way too much. So the constant turning in my head and everything, I'd get to the other end, and I would sink, literally. I'd sink because I was just dazed and out of balance and stuff. So it really forced me to take a step back and look at, okay, I can't do this. I can't do what I want to do. What can I do? And I just started to get away from my own ego and my own pride and say, okay, there's people out there that know way more than I do, that come from a background of this, that are experts in this. And instead of reading a magazine article and watching a quick YouTube video, thinking I know what I'm doing, let me actually start making sense of this. And I really just started educating myself and got with people that had that background, that could start with the fundamentals and work up and kind of break me of those bad habits and stuff. And I was a big proponent against CrossFit for a long time. I definitely was the guys who were like, man, I don't want nothing to do with that cult.
Yeah.
Get away from me. Don't get me wrong. There's some out there that is like, what is going on here? Like, man,
Yeah.
it's awkward. I'll say that. But they have a tight community, and then also you see them. They're like, man, like you can't deny the performance. You can't deny
Right.
the aesthetics part of it. So I had to be like, okay, there's something to this.
Yeah.
And trying to bridge the gap of the normal weightlifting kind of bodybuilder aspect to a more functional fitness, kind of athletic fitness aspect, that's what I wanted. I knew that I'm not going to go running a lot, but I need to still keep that up. I need to keep,
Right.
It's real easy for me to gain weight now because I like to eat, and I'm older, so my metabolism is, if it's even there. So I really had to take a hard step back and say, okay, what is it that I can do? What is it I really need to do? And it just really switched up my whole exercise routine, outlook and everything, all the way to the warm-up. I was very, very the typical guy that would go in and do a couple arm swings, do some stretches, and
Good to go then.
and then my warm up was I'd throw on 135 and do a couple of warm up sets and whatever, and then I'd go and I'd do my workout, and I'd always be like, man, like, how did I get this torn pec, or how did I get this messed up shoulder, or,
Right.
whatever it is. I'm actually recovering from a elbow issue right now, just because I'm not smart enough to know stop sometimes. But looking at how to do a dynamic workout, a dynamic warm up before I work out, and trying to, figure out, okay, when I was training at this one CrossFit gym, I had a really good friend of mine who owned one, and he kind of combined CrossFit with powerlifting, Olympic lifting and stuff. And it made sense. And so he brought me in, and he kind of brought me through the fundamentals. And I'm like, why am I working out before I work out? But in the long run, I saw so much more improvement and just gains across the board. The overall feeling, my health, recovery time was just leaps and bounds than before. The way I lifted, concentrating on my core, my actual form, and just carrying it all over to everything, and trying not to waste my time with 2-hour workouts, trying to fit every chest kind of workout in one workout, but looking at the fundamentals of compound movements versus isolation, and it just really take good advantage of the time that I had with the equipment that I had.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Branden, I want to ask you too, how has Catch a Lift impacted your life since they came into your life, and with your fitness journey and everything?
Yeah. So with that, and then trying to navigate what I just kind of rambled through of all that, with my background of I would definitely have let my eyes wander in a gym, and it's real easy to get into a conversation with someone that you're not supposed to be in conversation with. I completely pulled myself out of that element. And so what I mean by that is I chose to not go to the public gym. I chose not to go to LA Fitness or some of the other ones that we have out here in California, just because there's too many distractions, there's too many frustrations and all of that. Plus the time, my time and my schedule doesn't always meet up, and trying to get that in my day, it could be difficult. So, prior to finding out about Catch a Lift, I did start buying at home equipment. I bought my own rack. I got a really nice PRX rack, and started piecing things together. But I knew I was missing stuff, and it's like, man, gym equipment's really expensive. Like, if
Yeah.
anybody has not looked, it is not cheap, right? There's some cheap hobbies out there. Gym stuff is
Yeah,
not one of
gym's
them,
not one of them.
and it takes a little bit to get stuff pieced together, and you want to do it the right way. And anybody's like me, I would rather have everything that I think I need rather than not have it. But
Yeah.
and that's my wish list, but having the ability to um, have you guys come along and say, here, let's help you achieve your goal that you want, and by having the equipment that I need at my house, or that I want at my house, to be able to start piecing that stuff together, so that on a bad day, when I know I'm frustrated and it was just a bad day,
Right.
I don't need to worry about driving to the gym. I walk to my garage, and I can fit it in when I can, when I want to. And let's face the other part. I'm not afraid to try the new things in the gym, because if I fail, if I screw up, look like an idiot, which I do often, it's in my own garage. When I miss a lift or something, or the bar hits me in the face when I'm trying to clean, it's just me in there.
Yeah.
My son might be in there laughing or something. My wife might come out there, but I can deal with that.
Yeah.
So having that has been just huge. It helped me maximize my time at home, and then also be able to bring my family into it. That I can't. Most gyms won't allow you to have your children there.
Yeah.
So for my son to be able to go out there, and I'm teaching him how to deadlift, or I'm teaching him how to do this or whatever it is, and flip tires and stuff. My daughter comes out. It encouraged my wife to get in her own exercise routine. She was always really intimidated by going to the gym with me, or just going to the gym in general.
Right.
Thankfully, she found a really great supportive gym that's actually close. I'm going to point, but you guys aren't going to have a clue. Which is located in our building where our office is at. But Icon Fitness is here, and they just have a tremendous program. So just not a plug, but if anybody's in the Marietta area and they're looking for a great gym that can meet all their needs, Icon Fitness is definitely it. But it started from my wife seeing me, my children seeing me, my wife seeing my children, and just a connective thing of where fitness isn't just I want to be in shape, but it's a part of my life, so that I can be healthy, that I can feel better, and that I know that I'm doing everything I can, even though I know I'm not promised tomorrow, but I'm doing everything that I can to stay healthy and stay active, and I'd rather go take my aggression and frustration out on some dumbbells or a barbell instead of my house or my family. And so for you guys to be able to help bridge that gap for me has just been just huge. I mean, I can't say it any simpler than that. But yeah.
That's wonderful. And, quite honestly, and I don't think I'm speaking just for myself when I say this, but I will hear, one of my favorite parts about, having a fitness lifestyle, and a fitness lifestyle that's based out of the home, is the fact that my daughter gets to be a part of it. I can train with my husband. Like, it becomes a total family thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a wonderful byproduct. I have one last question for you today,
Okay.
Branden. What does it mean to you to be a Catch a Lift Fund veteran athlete?
Oh man, that's what does it mean? Wow, that's a good question. It means that I'm a part of a community that loves the same things that I love, and that are doing very similar things that I'm doing in this community of the veteran community, of helping one another, all for the same reason, is because we want to support and make sure everybody's better than they were the day before, and to be a part of that in another area is huge for me. because of the lane that I'm in with the kind of the spiritual mental part,
Right.
for me to be able to disconnect for a little bit and connect and go on my dashboard and say, man, I don't know what I want to do today, as far as a workout. And I just started getting into kettlebells, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm supposed to flip them this way or do this, but so to be a part of that, that's what I would say, is just to be a part of a community that loves what I love. Yeah, that's it.
Branden, thank you so much, first of all, for your service to our great country, but thank you so very much for the work you continue to do in our veteran community. It's just absolutely tremendous. Thank you for coming on and sharing your light with all of us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, Branden. It is our honor. That's it for this week's episode of Coach's Corner. Thank you again, Branden, for sharing your story and your light with us all. Absolutely tremendous. Thank you to ClearBridge and ID Technology for your support of all things Catch a Lift. Thank you to Lynn Coughlin, Henry Pomper, and Kaylee Nasiri for all of the work you do to make this podcast possible week after week. And we thank the entire Catch a Lift team. Until next week, keep it real and stay Cal strong.